All right, so let's talk about the March 2025 MER. And what immediately is obvious is that we have very, very good production numbers, right? So we, just for everyone as a reminder, March 12th was a massive patch that hit EVE Online. It had it had a lot of changes, but the two big changes were we have new T3 mining sites in nullsec, and which were especially geared at more fight supply, and then also capital ships and tier 1 battleships got about a 20 to 25% reduction in material that goes into them, dropping their price and therefore also triggering a lot of production. So overall, production levels are really good, especially in nullsec. And if we look at mining on here, mining got a massive boost, as you would expect from new sites. And this boost is almost entirely from nullsec because of these sites. So first of all, I would say this graph is looking really good. I would love to have the destruction graph follow, but in early April we did see a massive fight, so you can expect that graph to spike in April. Drake, anything else you want to add to this slide?
Yeah, I would say there's also a behavioral aspect to the minerals dropping. It's not just nullsec has gotten essentially what they should have got in the Equinox expansion. Um, because minerals were just going so out of whack. So first it was Icegen, then it was Mexilon and Morphite.
Yeah.
People were then holding on to those stocks because they were an appreciating asset, a very good appreciating asset. And the moment this change came in, people started dumping their stocks or using it to produce, which is having a bigger effect than the mining changes alone would have done. So
Yeah.
overall, it could have come a lot earlier, but we finally got there, I'd say.
And we're going to look at the MPI later in this report, right? But yes, it was corrected, but not nearly as much as I would have hoped or as I would have expected. So I think there's a long way to go for CCP to bring the MPI to what I think is an acceptable level. But we'll look at the details later. And you're absolutely right. The um the what we're looking at here is a moving average market price, so it's not the the actual volume mined. So that has an impact on this graph right here, just as a side note. And then also, you mentioned stockpiles. I think that's what is going to be really interesting in the April report as well. Not only did we have some big battles and probably even higher production, but we also had massive sales going on, like we have right now in the 241 Extractor sale in the new Iddon store, which again, people need liquidity to take advantage of the sale. And the sale is such an amazing value that people like me, like other large scale traders, like other people, veterans that might have a lot of stockpiles around, this is not only forcing people to try to acquire Plex, but it's also causing people to dump a lot of the stockpiles. Like, I have probably sold more minerals in this past week than I've ever sold in EVE Online, just because I needed liquidity to take advantage of this amazing sale. So April is going to be very, very interesting. But for now, let's skip on through to March. I typically don't look at the economic figures by region. Drake, if you want to add something, feel free to. Just because I take more of the macroeconomic view. I guess you have very much a Pochven focus, right? In terms
Yeah,
of
I
the
basically only look at Pochven
yeah,
on those graphs.
in terms of March 12th impact, what would you like, the March 12th patch impact? What would you say are the biggest ones for Pochven, economically speaking?
The March Pals was the main one that affected Pochven this month. Well, March was the GPU driven pipeline and its massive unseen effects on RAM usage. That has overwhelmingly hit multi-boxers more than usual players, and Pochven is like the multi-boxing paradise as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's been sort of insane, the behaviors that have come out. People are literally like finding old laptops to spin up to offload accounts onto there so they can multi-box more effectively on the rig they have. A lot of people have been mass buying RAM to get up to 128 gig
Oh my
to
god.
just brute force their way through. Yeah, it's actually kind of insane. That plus a ban wave has basically made it so the destruction has kind of stayed the same, but crabbing has destruction has gone down, but crabbing has gone up. So the ratio, which I like to tout, has like gone the wrong way,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of entirely of the fault of this multi-boxing thing. So it's
The
been
CCP
a weird one.
have said that there has been wasn't there a fix along the way that uh, nowadays it is better than it was, right? Wasn't it?
They did a fix, but I don't think it's not had a huge effect.
Okay.
For most, I think that was like an edge case.
Mm-hmm.
I've discussed it with CCP a bit. I've basically have just asked them just to let everyone know, like, if they don't have a patch coming soon for it, at least tell people where they're at and do like a dev blog to say like what's happened, why it's happened, and what steps they're trying to take to fix it. Because while I'm like a true solo person, like even the CSM accounts, I just use to skill farm. I just don't use them for anything else.
Yeah.
Like multi-box, if you want to multi-box, it is, it's your game to play. It's your subs, and this is essentially messing people's hobby up.
Mm-hmm.
So the faster a fix is out is the better. But even before a fix, the more communication that those players get is just needs to happen, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's an unintended nerf, right? If they came out and said we want to nerf multi-boxing, which by the way CCP is never going to say because it's fantastic business. Um, if they did, then that would be one thing. But a hidden nerf, yeah, that needs to be fixed. I'm not a huge fan of multi-boxing myself. I have done it. I do occasionally do it now, just because I need to be informed what's going on. But I think Eve would be healthier from a player base as a single player game, but it definitely wouldn't be healthy from a commercial aspect because this game wouldn't exist if it wasn't for multi-boxers supporting
Yeah,
multiple accounts. That's
yeah,
the just hard truth.
yeah, I agree. And also, you guys heard it here first. There's two CSM members both saying multi-boxing is cringe,
Yeah.
and you should evaluate your life choices.
Yeah, yeah. So the graph that is up here in the background is the asteroid ore volume mined over time. So it's not only value being mined more since the March 12th pack. You can see that immediately we have a 30 to 50% increase in the daily ore volume mined, which fantastic. It needs to translate into the MPI, but a fantastic start and a good thing to see. More people mining means more. It means cheaper production. It means more targets out in space. It means more people doing what they love. And clearly, there are a lot of people that love to mine in EVE Online. And what we can also see from this, though, is this is all nullsec. Like the increase, you can see all of the other parts of space essentially being the same or lower, but nullsec is increasing by a lot. If we gas unchanged, gas should be up a little bit. We have a lot of demand for dread production right now, so I hope this goes up a little just because we need more fullerene in the economy. It's a bottleneck, and miners go or wormhole miners, huffers go out and huff that gas, please. We need as much as we can to keep dread prices down. Ice pretty much unchanged, and then we get to moon materials. I don't know, Metanox. I don't know, Drake, if we've talked about Metanox on the show before, you and I, but overall, there is so the adoption was huge. The market is for the most part, flooded with Moon materials. Moon materials, especially R4 and R8, are dirt cheap right now to the point where it's basically, it doesn't make sense to manually mine them either. And except for R64s, every other part of Moon materials is pretty much dominated, or at least 50% metanoxed. Drake,
Yeah,
what's
and
your take on
this has
this?
been like has this been like the second or third time they've increased the fuel cost of the Metanox to disincentivize R4s and R8s?
Yeah, and everyone was
And
saying, "Oh, it's not gonna be worth it anymore." But it seems like it's also not worth to just taking them down.
yeah, it's also like not having an effect. Like R8s, what's that? Like 85% of all R8 production is Metanox.
Yeah,
R4 looks like it's the curve is slowing down, so that might start to reduce, but R8s I don't think is going anywhere anytime soon.
and prices are down, 40% on R4 and R8 moons. And if we look at, I think there's a graph. Let me actually, yeah, I can pull out that. Let me just pull that in the background. There's a, we have a friend of the community, Matthew, who puts this data into Power BI. I don't know if you're aware of that, Drake, or you're using that.
Yeah.
It's just fantastic. And what we can see there, if I'm just pulling it up here in the background. Oh, sorry for the flashbang grenade for the basement dwellers. I just there's no dark mode. Um, what we can see here, if we see moon materials by source, this is a nice graph right here. This is moon materials by source, and you can see here that this beige area in the middle is R4, right? Or right. If we look at there, R4, and so you can see how much R4 is entering the system, and how much that has increased because of Metanox moon drills. So essentially, R4 and R8 markets are completely broken by Metanox, and I think they would have to take much more drastic steps to change this. And I'm not saying they have to. It's just a fact that now I think, mining R4 and R8 is probably some of the most unprofitable thing you can do.
Yeah, there's another aspect to it as well. R4s are also there are people that will anchor Metanoxes at R4s, and regardless of the cost, because it's a content magnet.
Yeah,
So that will also factor into this a lot. But it's one of those things where the CCP only really have one lever to pull, which is the fuel cost, and it's not really working. So I'm not really sure where they're going to go from here. You can see it dipping a little bit after the last time they increased the fuel cost,
yeah,
but it's not unless we revisit this in like say half a year to see if it's worked. It's not. I don't think it's going to change much on the month to month.
yeah. And also now in March, part of that dip could also be that people are going to mine more asteroids, because they're a much better alternative now, after the
Mhm.
patch. So yeah,
Yeah,
but I just thought it was super interesting. By the way, shout out to Crota, who's just doing his sub gifting thing again. Amazing. Thank you, Crota, keeping the hype train going here. Amazing. Thank you. So back to the MER. Uh, this is by regions. You can see that regions like Scalding Pass, Syndicate, and also Fountain, which is in it, are very good and very much proliferated in Metanox. Pretty
shout out to
interesting.
Curse and Wicked Creek for being literally 100%
Yeah,
Metanox. By the way,
it's incredible, isn't it? Like, that's some organization right there. So my favorite graph, as most of you know, is this, looking at is sinks and faucets. Let me make this a little bit bigger, because it's all about these numbers right here. So we entered the year with 2,400 trillion in ISK outstanding in the economy. We added 168 trillion in faucets, the sinks are 125 trillion, and the active is delta is a very low minus 20 trillion. So let me put that into context here. If we go back to our PI, actually, we can look at the ISK sinks and faucets. And let's start with the faucets. The faucets are largely what they have been. So we have the exception of December of the Christmas event, which is just really, really crazy. It's an ISK printer. And after that, little bit of a drop. March is higher than February, but then again, we had probably a lot more players coming back for the March 12th patch. ISK faucets for Pochven in March, Drake.
So yeah, it's up quite a bit. So we went from, let me get my graph that I was looking for before we started the stream.
Oh yeah, let me know
Because
if you want to
the
share
force,
something.
yeah, I can send over. Give me a second.
You send it to me on Discord. I'll try to. Yeah.
If Discord wants to cooperate with me, there we go. So obviously the Triglavian Invasion's faucet is no longer pure faucet. It's partly obscured in commodities. So that 8.5 is not. Is it 8.5? Am I looking at the wrong one? I am looking at the wrong one. That's February. There we go. 8.9. So it's 8.9 trillion is pure risk. On top of that, it will have generated 3.8 trillion of red loot. Of that, only I'd say 20 billion of red loot has been destroyed. And we also have another sink of 270 billion of keys purchased, which was the key system that was introduced at the start of the year. So the net faucet for assuming all the red loot gets sold for March is actually 12.4. So that increase and the increase to center incursion is basically that 10 trill difference in the faucets. And that's kind of a side effect of a lot less fighting happening in Poshman because of this multi-boxing performance problem with RAM. So hopefully when that's resolved, and this new event is finished, because the event is also going to affect April figures, we might get back to where we were the month before.
Right.
Hopefully.
Drake, can you? I have this. I have the graph up in on the stream. Can you take the viewers through what this graph is showing? I'll try to make it a little bit bigger
Sure.
so people can actually
Yeah.
see.
So the column bars, the blue ones coming up, that's ISK generated in trillions. That's on your left side.
In
The
Pochven
orange
only,
bars
right?
below it, that's just Pochven, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is the Triglavian invasions and the red loot,
Yeah.
because I can't split out the accelerator flashpoints in K-space
Mm-hmm.
from Pochven.
Right.
So I estimate maybe 500 billion to 1 trillion each month is actually case-based stuff, but it's impossible to know unless the data team give us that data, and they currently aren't. So that bar that's going up and down, the blue bars, that is it's generated. The orange is the ISK destroyed, and then the big squiggly line going across is the ratio between those.
Yeah.
And just quickly, between the green and the light blue, green is everything, and light blue is after I've taken out things that aren't normal Podgevin events,
Mm-hmm.
like huge Citadel fights. I would have taken that out.
Yeah.
And in, I think it was like July last year, there was an exploit found the way you could hold the sites hostage so no one could complete them. So that affected the data. So that's why that's that adjustment. So the blue line is basically what the true ratio of Postman activity is. So the ratio, we want it as low as possible, because a high ratio is absolutely devastating to the EVE economy, especially on something that's almost, well, it's just ISK faucet, because commodities
Yep.
and ISK is both ISK. So I've been on a campaign for years now. What, 4 years now? Jesus, I feel old. To slowly get that down and bring Poshfin into a more balanced, as balanced as it can be. There's still a lot of work to do there, but you can see that slowly going down. We've had a bit of a blip in March because of this performance thing. Hopefully, that's not going to continue.
Mhm.
But if it does, it's just something I've got to keep in mind.
Why would the multiboxing bug impact destruction more than is generation?
Because the people who are crabbing more have more of an incentive to fix all their stuff, and it's a scaling problem.
Mhm.
So the people who fixed it first were an entire group that weren't fighting, and they basically got the region to themselves, as it were.
Okay. So
And it
and
didn't. The people that normally go and kill them hadn't scaled their computers up to allow for it. It's a weird one.
yeah,
It took a while for me to get my head around it because it didn't make sense to me. Like,
yeah,
why is it affecting one side and not the other? And it was basically one side figured out how to play the game properly before the other groups.
yeah, interesting. Um so if we go back to is so as I said, faucets, slightly higher in March, but in a very good place. The interesting thing is happening with the sinks. So sinks were back up a lot in March, and that's because we have uh, reverted the sales tax back to almost where it was before. So last July, the sales tax was 8%. It was then dropped by half, and now we're up to about 7.5% unskilled. So most people are going to have a drastically lower sales tax than that. Sales tax is the largest is sink in EVE Online, and as you can see here on the bottom right, and that has added a huge sink back in, and clearly on the on the face, a lot of people complain because they saw this as a tax increase. I think most people failed to realize that it was just back to where it was before and not even where it was before. What the effect that this has, we're going to see on the on here. If I show you the money supply in EVE Online, which is here. On here you can see the rising money supply and how it was rising very, very, very quickly between 2022 and 2025 here where we are today. And so a rising money supply is is not per se always a bad thing. It's just it always puts you at danger at inflation, for inflation in the game. And so I think most people agree that there should be a good balance between ISK sinks and ISK faucets, and we have been achieving that lately much better than in the 3-4 years before. So this is a very, very good sign. If you look at the we can actually look at the ISK sinks over time. You can see that here. This is exactly what I was talking about. So if you look at the purple line on the bottom, that is transaction tax, you can see that uh, it was adding about, it was taking about 1.5 trillion, 1 to 1.5 trillion out every single day up until July, and then it was cut in half, and then we were at about 500 to 800 billion only, and that has now been reverted back, and that allows us to be much more flexible uh, in the faucets that we can implement. I say we, I mean CCP with hopefully some input from the CSM, but um, overall I think it's a much safer space to be in. And the sales tax, it was never meant to be a permanent thing. It was always meant to be let's try that. Let's see if this what impacts this has on industry. Let's see what impacts this has on ISK velocity exchanging hands, and the impact has been very minimal, to be honest, and therefore it makes a lot of sense for CCP to take this now back to the 7.5% where we're at now. Drake, do you have an opinion on the sales tax issue?
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't just bring it back to 8%, honestly. But and also the increase we've got is only because we went from 22 trillion sink in February to 34,
Yeah,
and that was only that's only 12 days of the month that's been affected because the patch was on the 19th or
Yeah.
18th, I think it was. So that's going to
Yeah.
have an even more of an effect, which is good. We'd like inflation has been not hyperinflation, but it's been too high for quite a long time, and people have complained about it a lot. It's not just the sinks and faucets and the money supply. It's also, for example, we're going to get into the crazy sale, which has just put Plex through the roof again.
Oh my God. It's,
I know. It's they keep doing it, but I know they're a business. They got to make money. But so it's definitely a step in the right direction.
yeah.
One of them, a lot of people have complained to say like, why are you taxing us more? I would note that despite Eve being basically the only MMO where the economy is entirely player driven, we have the lowest taxes in existence of most MMOs. I'm fairly sure Final Fantasy 14 is like 5% or something. So we were lower than that until now.
If you,
We don't
I
have
play,
repair fees anymore.
I play Guild Wars 2 occasionally, and there, I mean, trading on the market is just, they just always take 10%, like just take it.
Yeah,
So,
but
but
it needs to happen.
of course,
It's no one likes, you go and do PvE to get all this money and you're going to lose a load when you sell it. There are avenues to reduce it, like a huge amount, I might add, and you could also just use the stuff if you get creative with it.
yeah,
But if this isn't here, shit goes south so fast, it's unreal.
yeah.
It's
Things
like
like the Podgevent
economies
sinks,
are
things like the
yeah,
Podgevent
exactly.
faucets would break the economy much quicker. Let me
Yeah,
just address a few things in chat. So one, Crota, thanks for giving out 20 gifted subs. Holy, like you're um carrying this hype train by yourself. Let me say, Higher Brand said earlier that Pyrite prices are making some R4 worth it manually. That's true. Pyrite has been through the roof, like completely through the roof, and um, that is causing some new situations where mining R4s manually does make it worth it. I would think that that's going to be that should be a temporary thing, because pyrite at the current price level is probably an issue in the long run. But that's going into a very detailed discussion on each of the the minerals. Crota is just going nuts here in chat. All right, thank you, Crota. Let me say one last thing here. Active ISK delta, okay? The active ISK delta is the net inflow or outflow in ISK, not through sinks and faucets, but through players becoming active or inactive after, so active coming back from a long period of inactivity, and going inactive after 3 months. CCP takes their money out of the economy, out of this or out of this calculation here, at least, because it's considered inactive. And then also bot bans. And the 20 trillion, if we compare that to previous month here, the active ISK delta, it is very low. So typically we see a net inflow here via expansions or goon moves, as we saw last year in October. Since then, we typically have a net outflow because people are becoming inactive or using fewer accounts, etc., etc. And now in March, we saw a more or less a net zero. You would imagine a lot of people coming back from inactivity, if they were mining, for example, where they were coming back for mining, or if they were coming back for cheaper battleships or cheaper capital ships, that might have just incentivized them to come back. And then we always have the unknown of the bot ban, so we don't know how big that number is. So that's always there, but a number that is much better, objectively speaking, than the last 4 months. So generally a positive movement, right, Trey?
Yes.
Yep.
And also speak for yourself on the ActiveX Delta. I actually know the stats for this month.
Ah, all right.
I'm now the
Yeah.
speaker about
I
it.
can't, definitely not on stream. Yeah, and you definitely didn't say bad bot bans earlier on stream. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Let's go to the MER back here. So top 6 faucets over time. Wormhole loot mostly unchanged. OPEs mostly unchanged. Triglavian data going up, but then again, right now it's very profitable to also run abyssal pockets, Drake, because the abyssal materials are so damn expensive. So
Yep.
I think much more activity on the Triglavian content there.
Yeah, so the Triglavian data doesn't include Podgevin stuff anymore. So
Yeah.
Edencom data is now the Podgevin red loot. We split that out 2 months ago, so we could actually distinguish, is that data increase because Podgevin is being farmed way more, or is there a sell-off of stocks, or is it because Abyssal is getting farmed way more? So that is distinct now, thankfully, so I can actually track it.
So this blue line right here is only Triglavian pockets being
Only
run, right?
Abyssals.
Like the only
Yes.
abyssal pockets, right? Yeah. This we talked about earlier. We see the big difference in transaction tax to last month. Massive increase, and that's going to be there to stay, especially looking at the market, what the market is doing this week, because we had one of the highest trade days ever. So that transaction tax is going to be going nuts, positively speaking. Triglavian invasions here, pretty flat number, right? The pink graph here, Drake.
Yeah, and you can see it dropping off after that March 12th patch. You can see like people struggling with their performance issues and things like that, and also some groups moved in their place, and then they've like moved on elsewhere, especially for the event. So that you're getting a lot of different behaviors there.
Yeah.
Also, can I just say, I don't know why you're not coming to FanFest, because Crowder has basically bought you a plane ticket in like the
Yeah.
past 30 minutes.
Yeah. He has. He has. No, he's a legend. It's much more about me being over here with my family, and if I go to Iceland, it's like anything under 10 days doesn't really make any sense, because it takes me at least 2 days to get there and 2 days to fly back. So
Yeah, that's fair.
since I'm here in Australia to spend time with my family, it's just a very tough decision. But yeah. Plus, I would have done it for CSM Summit. I would have prioritized CSM Summit over FanFest, because that would have been much more important to me. Next year, I feel like hopefully I can do both again, and CSM Summit only if I get elected, but FanFest definitely.
Yeah.
um,
I will say, just as a side bit, the CSM Summit is the first time in a long time where I've not been arrested at an airport when I'm flying.
oh my god.
I get arrested at airports quite a lot. It's like a hobby of mine.
Oh no. Oh no. All uh unjustified. Hopefully. No comment.
Most of them.
But
Most of them.
was it for getting a Python kill on airport Wi-Fi? Is that
No, well, that was criminally stupid, I will admit. No, I've accidentally smuggled drugs twice, which is just normal medication, which took too much.
all
The
right?
Spanish
Okay.
authorities didn't like me. Then the
Yeah.
next time I went to Manchester Airport, I was automatically flagged. So the moment I scanned the ticket, I got pulled aside.
All right. Yeah.
I accidentally caused a bomb scare by leaving a Warhammer locked box in security and then ran away because I forgot it.
Remind me to never fly with you, Drake. Like
I'm just cursed.
I am. If I'm leaving Iceland the next time, I'm making sure I'm not leaving at the same time you are. Velocity of ISK is one of the last graphs here. Really, one thing you can say about this, yes, the base velocity of ISK has been increasing over the last year, but if you take out contracts and plex, then it really hasn't. So it's been pretty much stagnant for 3 or 4 years, um, which is not great, right? I think we're going to see an increased ISK velocity in April, probably because there has been a lot of market volatility going on. But in March still it was very, very so. There, so like I would love to see this number going back to where it was previously, just because and more trade is typically a result of increased production, increased destruction, and increased mining. And yes, while a lot of these materials don't leave nullsec per se and never really hit highsec to be traded, there is a direct correlation between just there being more action in EVE Online and velocity of ISK overall.
Yeah, definitely. I would also like to point out the gap between ISK velocity and ISK velocity without contracts is widening,
Yeah,
because as players are getting richer and richer, they're moving to more expensive purchases. And I've raised this multiple times on the CSM. People will always go over to contracts just to avoid the tax on it. Because, for example, like you mentioned, my kill with the Python, I paid 10,000 ISK in tax on that Python for a
yeah,
multi-trillion purchase. Like, that is stupid.
yeah,
That's how strong contracts are.
yeah,
It's very much a another issue in the game as far as sinks and faucets are
yeah.
concerned.
I mean, don't give them too many ideas, man. It's a dangerous topic.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Uh,
just saying, if you want to sell Plex for 7 mil, because it looks like it's going that way, contracts
I
will save
think,
you a lot of money.
I mean,
Hint, hint, nudge,
like,
nudge.
to be honest, the uh, those the contracts that are just fully tax evasion, like when you're selling a bunch of Plex or skill extractors over contracts to random people that you don't know, I think yes, that could be a prime target for taxation, or at least like an adjustment, a slight adjustment, because I still think it's much less efficient than trading it on the market. So there should be much less tax on it. On the other hand, that's not really taking a lot of risk if you're just using contracts. I think,
My take is it's more efficient than the market because you can see it from anywhere. You don't need to travel to the market to actually shop around.
you
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 can,
can, but if you're talking about large Plex and large skill extractor trades, most of those are not public contracts. Most of those are done on a Discord and then just done in game, right? Like,
yeah,
um,
yeah, that's true.
so yeah. But topic for another day. I don't. We've just increased taxation, so I'm a contract taxing is a very, very delicate matter that would need a a very, very thoughtful implementation. And right now I don't know if I want to dabble with that in this game, in this very fragile economy. Also, we just basically fixed the largest issue we had in terms of ISK, is faucets, right? So right now, um, I think contract taxation would become very, very much important if we had another runaway ISK faucet issue. So
Yeah,
we'll keep that in the
and
back pocket.
also CCP has kind of been at fault as well with so many events that are like pure risk faucet. Winter Nexus being probably the most egregious one, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. People love it's the how do you say it in English? Bread and games. What's this? What Caesar said?
Bread and butter.
Yeah. No. With the Romans, they give the people bread and just
Oh
games to,
god.
like,
I,
from
yeah, I
gladiator
know what you
movies.
mean.
Like, it's that, right? It's appeasing the masses by just giving them a lot of money, not
Bread and
considering,
circuses.
not yeah, exactly, there we go. And not considering the fact that it just drives up in inflation, and then everyone's
Yeah. And
is just worth
it looks like
mentioning.
they've, because I've grilled them on it a few times just to say like events are good. People really like the events, but ISK Faucet, just doing ISK Faucet over and over again is just going to lead to a deterioration of the economy, like even faster. And I'm so glad that at least with this phase of the drifter crisis, some of these sites are giving out quite a bit of money, like the Nexus Point, the one with the new very sexy Amitad drifter dreadnought,
Mhm.
is giving out, it's like 2.5 billion ESC or something. But first of all, you have to do other sites to get that. And the main value of the loot is new officer modules, which, if you want to buy them, you have to pay tax, unless it's through a contract, which paid no tax.
Yeah, and
The most important
YP and
thing is, yeah,
yeah, well, YP in chat and also some others are rightfully pointing out the dangers of uh, taxing contracts, and I fully agree. YP, if you like handouts via contracts to court mates, etc., all that needs to be always tax free, and there's no discussion about that. Like there's like contracts within corps to alts to like all of that needs to be tax free, and then until CCP figures out a way to do that, I think there's nothing to be there should be nothing done in there.
yeah, no, that's fair.
Um, cool. Hype train completed at level 13. God. Thank you, Crota, for keeping that that insane hype train going. This this graph right here is the big graph for March. It's the mineral price index, what everyone was waiting for. And to be honest, so yes, there was a sharp drop in MPI. Of course there was, because all of the changes that were introduced on March 12th. Since then, though, we haven't seen minerals drop by all that much. To be honest, if you compare it to a year ago, right? If you compare current mineral prices to a year ago, let me just see here. I have them here. So there is a significant drop in things like morphite or even tritanium or megasite, right? But if you look at pyrite and zydrine, for example, today they're trading at more than double the price that they were a year ago, right? So yes, this is a nice start to getting mineral prices down, but the volatility in the market is so high right now because production is high, right? Because we're seeing exactly what we want to see. We're seeing big battles. We're seeing dreads destroyed. We're seeing dreads being built. But the market right now cannot handle, on the supply side, cannot handle the destruction and production. And so it's probably too early to make especially from a CCP perspective, knowing how careful CCP is, probably too early for them to make another drastic movement. But I think it needs to be around the corner, because this MPI is not going to get anywhere close to down there where we used to be if we're not seeing more minerals entering the system.
It's certainly something that needs to be watched with a close eye. My take on it is something that I like observed, like back when Isogen was the main one that was spiking so hard.
Yeah.
When they solved the Isogen issue by all the build costs went down for Isogen, which is the main thing, and it immediately moved over to Morphite, and Morphite spiked harder than Isogen did at a faster rate, because the moment you let the brakes off the bottleneck, everyone immediately moves onto that because people have been stockpiling, and it immediately hits the next bottleneck. And I feel that's what we're seeing with Pyrite. We did see it with
And Zide right
like
now,
Morphite.
this
Yeah,
this past week.
Nexlon's down, isn't it? But because I know Morphite is down 75% in the past like 50 days.
Maxilon is about where it was a year ago. I mean, it went up and then went back down. Maxilon
Yeah,
has dropped from in the last quarter or so, but
yeah,
but overall we're
yeah.
seeing a ton of volatility. That's just the thing, right? We were seeing the as you say, and by the way, even Isogen, yes, they did a lot of things to bring the Isogen price down, but it's not like the price crashed, or not. It's not like as the isogen price um went down into regions where we used to be, right? If I look at the historic, um I'm pulling it up in the background here. Historically speaking,
I would also
isogen.
say that even in a let's say it gets to like the healthier position that CCP considers healthy or the players consider healthy, it's still not going to be cheaper than what it was prior because it's inflation. People have more money. There's more money chasing more or less the same goods. I know that the supply has been changed quite a lot. So that the effect of ISK supply on minerals is always going to be there, unless we have some sort of massive 2008 crash or something, and CCP steal like 500 trillion or something.
Well, I think what what the MPI tells you is that the proportion of ISK going into materials is just overall much higher than it used to be, right? I mean, it's
Mhm.
the MPI rose much quicker than inflation did in EVE Online, and so um, I'm just using isogen as an example here, but you look at isogen historically. Here, I'm on the screen. I'm showing prices since 2015. Um, there was a massive bottleneck in isogen, and then it was slightly fixed, but it's not like the price has gone down by 50%, but not anywhere even in the region where it was historically. And so yes, a CCP is going to say, well, that's why we did the resource redistribution and quote unquote scarcity, and maybe it shouldn't be down there. But I mean, we're still, I think CCP is still in a situation where they're being way too careful on a lot of these things, and we're so far away from super cheap titans or multi-boxing Rorqual issues that that
Yeah,
we can.
you think CCP is still scared of the Rorqual era coming back?
They
Do you
are
think that?
so
Yeah,
they're super scared of it, um and clearly so. I mean, you have new people joining, all the time. Especially last year, saw a lot of the changes on the dev team. Right, we have Okami now, who is getting a good reception in the community because he's communicating more, and I think a lot of them are they have this boogeyman over their head that was the Rorqual area that everyone at CCP is telling them, okay, whatever happens, don't go back there, and that's what they're working with. So I don't blame them. If I started a new job and on day one somebody tells me, okay, this is what you do, blah, blah, but whatever you do, don't ever let this happen again, then you're going to be careful. And so I think it's perfectly normal and human to be that. But I hope that we as a CCP can take that away from them a little bit, and say that it's okay. It's okay to release a few more minerals into this system, because this system is pretty robust nowadays. It's I would argue that normalizing these prices would be much better for the economy and industrialists in EVE Online, and even for miners, than these massive spikes that we are seeing that are all over the place, because the economy is just incredibly unstable, and that's typically not good for people um, in the economy, right? Wherever you stand, whichever stakeholder group you're
yeah,
talking about.
yeah. And it's also kind of an effect of they were hands off for too long. They let, like, for
Oh yeah,
example, the Rorqual era. The Rorqual era was great for the people who are in it, and it was bad for the economy. But it was a ticking. It was the longer it was left, the worse its effects would get. And then CCP have, and I think I speak for most of the player base, they massively overcompensated for it, and that overcompensation has swung it so far in the other direction. And then they waited, and then they waited, and then they waited. So we just going as long as they stick to the promise. Like Okami said, he's gonna like review it every 2 weeks, and I hope he sticks to that. And I hope he continues to communicate, because CCP is, we finally got them to communicate like on a just the actually speaking to players and not being scared of them. I guess as long as they don't let off on the effort and keep reviewing it, it will get more stable over time. I still don't think it's ever going to go back to the way it was, because the money supply has, it's gone up by like what? It's up like 60% in the past like 3 years or something,
Yeah.
or something ridiculous. Um, that's not something you can come back from unless you do something drastic, and doing something drastic will make half the players leave. So
It's I would compare it to a drug addiction, the Rorqual area, because for CCP, they were also profiting from it on the commercial side, right? There was
oh
like
yeah, because it was infinitely
the
scalable.
business side would never want that to end, because people were multiboxing, people, it was like everyone is in a rush, and then somehow they realize, oh, okay, but we can't do this infinitely. Like we can't keep taking strong drugs for years, because at some point the economy is going to be wrecked, and people
Yeah.
aren't going to be able to join this game as a new player. People are not going to have fun anymore, and it's it's a very tough situation. And so they, to come out of it, they've overcompensated, and they're still overcompensating till today. But let's hope that
I won't say they're overcompensating now. I think they've just got shell shock from it, so they're
yeah.
so apprehensive on moving the levers.
No, I mean overcompensating as in probably undercompensating is my like now they're being
Yeah,
so extremely careful that we need we need to get back to uh, a little bit more minerals and a little bit cheaper ships quicker.
yeah.
Is my
I
thing.
I, I personally don't mind the them being overly cautious, as
Hmm.
long as they're actually doing something, because it's kind of like a perfect is the enemy of good. If you want to get the perfect change in, you will never get the change in, because you'll be squabbling over what the perfect change is. If they're
Yeah,
doing something and iterating it on, even if it's just drips and drabs, like every month or something, that is far, far better than what they've done in the past 10 years in
yeah.
terms of their control of the economy.
Crota makes a good point in chat, and he says, it always amazes me that CCP with 10 times more data than any central bank has struggles as much as central banks do to control inflation, etc. And um, I
I
think,
think that's kind of unfair.
well, you know what so I agree, Drake. I think in Eve Online we're talking about a situation that has never existed. So this is a video game like no other, and there's no 100 countries over thousands of years where you could compare it to and say, okay, this has worked, this hasn't worked. Most situations in Eve Online are, there are very, very, very few people in the world that have the knowledge to address these issues. And it, if you have new devs taking over, um, if you have limited human resources working on this, then there's never going to be the situation where you have perfect information, because you would have to have an amazing understanding of your game, which I stick by the fact that most there are probably more players out there that have they're like overall players. There are players out there that have a better understanding of this game than CCP devs do, just because they have spent way more time with it in the past. And that's just how it is. But I think there's no situation where CCP um, understands this perfectly and knows from history exactly what the levers are going to be. So it's just difficult. It's very, very difficult.
The reason I was saying it's kind of an unfair comparison because one, it's technically not true at all. I'll get into that a bit later. And two, it's a game. Well, there's three things. One, it's a game, which is very different to real life. And if you prioritize getting the economy in shape over the game being fun, then the game dies. That's I'm being a bit alarmist there,
No,
but
it's true.
it's kind of at the end of the day, CCP is a business. If they need to keep their players happy. If the players aren't happy, they won't sub or they won't sub as much. They won't tell their friends because Eve is very much a word of mouth advertising game because it's so niche, which is a shame because it's like one of the greatest games in the history of gaming, as far as I'm concerned. Um, the second thing is Eve isn't a closed system. Most like countries are a closed system, ignoring things like quantitative easing, which is like directly controlled by the governments that do it. CCP doesn't really have that direct control, and a closed system is very different to an open system. That's like taxes in a country is a political choice more than an economic one, um, for the most part. Whereas in Eve, you could very easily say, "Oh yeah, elect Drake Iddon for CSM 20, I'll get taxes to zero," and everyone can have all their money, and then the economy just fucking shits itself after it'll pull an Eve Echoes like yes, kind of like the people that want to get rid of ganking. If you want to see what happens when you get rid of ganking, go to Eve Echoes because everybody lives in high-sec. It's botted to shit because no one dies, and the economy was literally ruined overnight. It was absurd. I know it's a mobile game, but
Yeah.
it's still Eve Light. I can't remember what the final thing I was going to make as well. Crap.
Yeah, no, I mean, I
Yeah.
agree. I think you make some very good points. In the real world, people
Oh,
have to take part, right? They have to take part. They have to eat. There's a lot of things that where people don't have a choice, and in Eve Online, people always have the choice to just leave and just not play the game if it's not fun. So that puts a whole different spin on monetary policy.
yeah. I also remember my third point. When I said it's not true. It's not true if you are only looking at like a Western country. So what's the inflation in Eve? Like it's been like, depending on the item, it's something like between
I can tell
6
you,
and
like
fifty
six.
percent. Is that
Yeah,
fair?
yeah.
Yeah,
If you
is
look
that
at
so? That's a fair thing.
the overall economy in the last year, hold on, I think we're about
Yeah.
6%.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
So Argentina is in the last year, October to October, 63%. Venezuela was 71%. Sudan was 118%.
yeah.
Venezuela at one point was in the billions of percent. So it's
Well,
kind of not true.
interestingly, Drake. Interesting. Like if you look at today, we have the Eve economy today has a negative 4% inflation because the price of skill extractors and large skill injectors has cratered so much this week, and that has taken the entire economy down. So let's see how
Uh,
that's temporary, But
I feel like that's not a prudent metric, but yeah,
it's it's a simple comparison of where we are today versus a year ago. Things are very cheap today, but
yeah.
we'll we'll take
Should we
back
get onto
next
the
week.
sale now?
Yeah.
Because the sale, I woke up and I was like, oh
Oh
yeah,
my
they're
god.
doing a sale, and then I fucking saw the sale. I was like, holy shit, why?
Let's do talk about the sale. For that, I'm going to quickly move over to my dashboard because I need spreadsheets for this. Give me a second. I'm going to hide this and pull on this. So for those of you that don't know, let me give you a quick summary of what happened. So we already had a cash store extractor sale going on a couple of weeks ago, which took the skill extractor prices down about 10%, 10 to 15%, and didn't have a big impact on Plex because it was a real cash store. Back then already I heard rumors that, oh, maybe they're doing a Plex again and again, which I nicknamed the first sale that they did 2 years ago, where they did a 2-for-1 skill extractor sale in the new Iddon store. And that means that there's a direct arbitrage opportunity between Plex and skill extractors. And the question then is, how quickly does Plex rise to still make it worth it to buy skill extractors really, really quickly and sell them on the market? And a lot of people have been flipping that in the first 24 hours. And we're now at a state in the economy where yesterday we had a trade volume of 60 trillion. Let me just pull this up here. If you look at highest trade volume yesterday, here we go. 60 trillion traded. So an average forged JITA day is about 15 trillion. So yesterday, 60 trillion. And 23 trillion of that was Plex. 16 trillion of that was skill extractors. So we essentially yesterday more skill extractors were traded than on a regular JITA forge day, combining all trade together. And then as a knock-on effect, we had large skill injectors trading at 5.6 trillion because people were scrambling to really, really quickly generate ISK liquidity to buy these skill extractors at this amazing value that we're seeing right now. And so same with hypercores, by the way. People dropping hypercores absolutely at record rates because there was still some holdouts that were that had ISK tied up in hypercores from the last 2-for-1 hypercore sale, which compared to this sale now looks like a terrible sale. But let's just say a lot of investors learned a lot in the last week, including myself. I lost about $500 billion in that sale because I was already holding a few trillion in skill extractors. But it's a overall total mess. I can't. As I said earlier, Drake, total. Oh my God! I woke up. This is a terrible news for my investors and my wallet. On the other hand, also incredibly fun because there's things happening in the market. The only downside of this, and it's a pretty big downside, is that typically you have some very, very large veteran traders with deep pockets profiting from this rather than small new players because they don't have any ISK to invest in this. But that's a silver lining there. Drake, what are your thoughts on this?
The silver lining we can take is just on the Plex alone that was sold yesterday. Assuming people have accounting 5, will have taken more out of the game with the taxes than tax normally takes out in an entire day across the entire EVE economy, which is sort of absurd. Other silver linings: if you have skill farms, they are now extremely profitable. If you if you do the Plex deals that come up every so often and get the year-long ones.
I have never had more requests for loans than yesterday. Because people are used to writing to me and saying, "Hey, can I get a loan?" And I have no liquidity. Because the only thing I could do yesterday is say, "Oh my God, I only have a few $100 billion left in liquidity. I need to buy skill extractors, or I'm going to just lose way too much on this. You can't pay me the interest rate to loan you money when I can just dip in this and make way more money." So apologies to all the investors out there.
Sorry. Yeah, and also if you are like me who decide to sleep in and miss this, the bright side is if you have spare liquidity, you can average down on this very well.
Mm-hmm.
So in the long run, just knock on wood, assuming this sale doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
It's not the sale that took me by surprise, because you get a Plex sale, you get an NESL, you get a Plex sale, you get an NESL. It's literally clockwork with CCP at this point. It's just the amount of value in this sale was astronomically different to the what we're used to.
Yeah, so if
That's
you
like
if you're
what
looking
throw a
at
wrench in it.
I have I'm showing skill extractors historically here, and you can say that that massive price increase, by the way, is the sub price increase and subsequent plex price increase. That's what you're seeing from the historical 300 million going up to 5, 6, 700 million. So overall, skill extractors uh, have increased in price just because of the increase of Plex value. But if you look at, and I know this is hard to see because Adam for Eve doesn't have a dark mode, but if you look at this blue line, hopefully you can see this blue line. This is trade volume on skill extractors. This was the first Plexageddon right here, 20,000. We are now at 40,000. So
Mhm.
this the previous largest sale has been surpassed by double in trade volume already. This is day 1 or day 2 now of the sale going on, and I think CCP is celebrating because their goal is to take Plex out of the system, right? Because for them, Plex that is sitting around and not being used is something they can't recognize as revenue, and so they love when Plex is going out of the system. They don't necessarily love super high Plex prices, and we heard that from CCP Ratadi when he was here on the show, right? So they do think that's an issue, but overall, they are forcing people's hands that are holding a lot of Plex, because you can't imagine any active player with a lot of Plex not acting on this, right? Every active player with Plex is going to act on this, and to make the Plex supply problem even worse is that nobody buying Plex with real cash to maybe get a good subscription price out of this by flipping skill extractors eventually into Omega time. Nobody is going to buy the Plex and sell it on the market. Everyone's going to buy the Plex and then buy skill extractors and then sell those. So that's why you're seeing this massive dip in skill extractor prices, this massive uh, uh, um, rising of Plex prices, and subsequently large skill injectors and hypercores also crashing. So lots of opportunity out there, just no cash. And Crota said this earlier. Crota always advocates for a banking system with an Eve. This would have been an incredibly interesting scenario for a banking system in EVE Online, because everybody and their mother needed liquidity, and there was no liquidity out there. So this would have been a much more efficient system if there was a banking system, but it would have crashed a lot of things yesterday. And yeah, so CCP is, I think, pushing the limits of what is possible with sales, because they are like this is probably a once every 2 year thing. Like this is they can't do this all the time, or Plex will be just permanently gone from the system, and skill extractors will be worth nothing, making skill farming very profitable, and flooding the market with skill injectors.
Yeah, it's almost like the allegory with the golden goose. Like they can't do this. Like they can't keep doing this, especially ones of this size. Otherwise, it's going to do not irrevocable harm, but it will take longer and longer to get back to. Well, we won't even ever get back because ISK inflation as well is going to also factor in. Um, so unless they do some like absolutely out of this world value deals on Plex, like I think we're heading for 7 mil by the end of the month on Plex. Probably by the end of the week, 7 mils probably not
It touched it
outside
yesterday,
the
and then it dropped back down, because eventually people are going to
start offloading stocks. Yeah,
yeah, like some people start just buying Plex with cash. Some people alert their friends that have stockpiles. This
yeah,
is, yeah. So this is insane. Like, yeah, and as a tornado of dogs is saying in chat, this is why everything is so cheap. Like, I crashed several markets yesterday because I needed liquidity. So Zydrine was a meme holding on my on in my portfolio for the longest time, because I always said Zydrine is undervalued, and this was when Zydrine was 1,000, was worth 1,000, and now we're touching 3,000, and so I still had I don't know, about 100 billion in Zydrine lying around, and I was just like, okay, now's the time, and I was just dumping it to buy orders. Some people got very, very lucky that needed Zydrine because I was dumping literally 10 billion at a time to any available buy orders or buyers that I could find. I had a look at who bought them. I saw a lot of fraternity buying large fraternity accounts, which always baffles me that people are actually doing large scale resource trading on their mains. Like why do you have your why are you giving away free intelligence? What I'm wondering. Not even I have my my main trading accounts under my name. But yeah, interesting times for sure. It's a crazy sale.
I would absolutely kill to get signals put it into the regional market, so you don't just see like the volume and the Donchian channel and the average. You could see like the MACD and the RSI, because looking at that during this would look like that would set off so many alarm bells.
There are several new out of game trade tools out there, like especially in the last year we've seen new entries, and a lot of them write to me and say, hey, can you give us feedback on the market browser, etc. And I typically love to do that. That's that's something for them to implement. That's probably like advanced statistics, trading statistics, are something that they could definitely implement to make it worth it. Cool. Yeah, I think that's about it. Drake, thanks so much for chatting. It's what have we got? About an hour and a half. Amazing. So much fun. Hope to see you back on the show very, very soon. And any last minute shout outs or anything you wanna say?
Yeah, just thanks for having me. And I know you're not going there, even though Crowder has single-handedly funded like 2 return trips for your entire family, and a 5-star hotel, and boarding. But yeah, no, I'll be at FanFest if anyone wants to speak to me, and hopefully CCP isn't going to pull a trick like this anytime soon again, because this is like absolutely absurd.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, but I assume pretty commercially profitable for them.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they're just doing lines of coke in the bathroom now. Like some people came up with this idea.
Yeah,
There's going to be a
that's what you
marketer
do
who
before
like
flying.
had
We
this
know this now.
idea. Yeah, yeah.
So we've learned a lot about Drake today. If you guys want to get in, so Drake is in our Discord, on our Discord, and on most other big public Eve Discords. So I'm sure if you want to get in touch with Drake, Discord is a good way, right? Drake?
Yep, absolutely.
Perfect. All right. I'm going to take a quick break to clean up the stream, and then I'm going to be back with the Oz report. All right. See ya, Drake.
Peace.